The Business News Headlines is brought to you by CBX Wealth Management, making more possible.
Strong earnings, resource expansion, and global inflation pressures in focus. Good evening and welcome to CBX Business News for Friday, August 8, 2025. I am Rochelle Moncrief. Thanks for joining us. Coming up in the newscast, locally, NCB Financial Group reports a net profit of over $30 billion for the 9 months ended June 30, buoyed by strategic asset disposals. On the regional front, Miata Metals launches a US $3 million private placement to advance gold exploration in Suriname. And over on the global stage, global food prices climb in July, hitting a 17-month high. Stay tuned as we unpack these stories and more right after the break.
Wealth is not simply counted in dollars or cents, but in the time we spend with love, in love, giving love. Wealth is not simply a means to an end. It is the means to live out loud. Wealth is more than money. It's about family, the memories you create, the legacy you leave behind, and your ability to enjoy life in the moment. It's also about seeing the CBX possibilities and seizing investment opportunities to achieve the future you want and deserve. Which is why CBX Wealth will focus on your investments so you can experience more. Because true wealth is truly more. To start investing today, call 876-926-7767.
The local news is brought to you by Derriman Trading, better from the start. Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean flavors and fragrances, tease the senses, and Pulse Investments.
Welcome back to CBX Business News. We begin with a major earnings report from the National Commercial Bank Financial Group. NCB Financial Group, NCBFG, has reported a consolidated net profit of $30.5 billion for the 9 months ended June 30, 2025, reflecting a 68% increase when compared to the corresponding period last year. The results were disclosed by NCBFG's Chief Financial Officer, Malcolm Sadler, during the group's investors' briefing for Quarter 3 earlier today. Sadler also pointed to solid operational growth and the strategic sale of a subsidiary as the primary drivers behind the significant profit boost.
The group reported consolidated net profit of $30.5 billion for the 9 months ended June 30, 2025, representing a $12.4 billion or 68% increase over the prior year. Net profit attributable to stockholders of the company was $19 billion, an improvement of 60% or $7.1 billion. Consolidated equity at June 2025 totaled $240 billion, an increase of 21% or 41.5 billion over June 2024. Consolidated equity attributable to stockholders of the company was 16% or 26.8 billion higher than the prior, closing the period at 189.8 billion.
According to Sadler, the group's earnings surge was largely driven by an over $15 billion gain realized in the second quarter.
The rise in profit for the 9 months was largely as a result of the gain in the second quarter of 15.1 billion from the disposal of one of our insurance brokerage subsidiaries in the Netherlands. The gain attributable to stockholders of the company was 9.4 billion. For June 2025 quarter, consolidated net profit was 8.3 billion, 12% higher than the corresponding quarter of the previous year, and consolidated net profit attributable to stockholders of the company was 5.6 billion, also higher than the corresponding quarter of the prior year by 12%.
NCBFG's Chief Financial Officer, Malcolm Sadler. And as elections unfold across major territories where the NCB Financial Group NCBFG operates, top executives are expressing confidence in the group's resilience and long-term strategy. Responding to questions during the group's investor briefing for Q3 earlier today, Group Chief Executive Officer CEO Robert Almeida downplayed concerns about political risk, noting that elections and government changes are normal part of the business landscape.
Probably don't see any vulnerability. Elections happen, we manage our business, economies change, there's all types of geopolitics around the world. We build a business that is resilient and we adapt to whatever policy changes may or may not happen. We don't have any particular concerns.
NCBFG's Chief Executive Officer Robert Almeida. His comments come amid ongoing electoral activity in Jamaica and a recent change of government in Trinidad and Tobago, home to Guardian Holdings, which is part of the NCB Group. Guardian's Group CEO Ian Chinapoo also reinforced the sentiment, adding that both entities are systemically important financial institutions that have maintained strong working relationships with whichever administration is in office.
I say always, with a change of government comes change of sometimes strategies and goals, and there may be opportunities that we can seek to support those strategies. But we are long-term fundamental business, and we have been around, I think, collectively, at least I think 180 years for Guardian and maybe a little bit longer for NCB. So these changes are opportunities for us to continue to serve.
That was Guardian's Group CEO Ian Chinapoo. In other news, Prime Minister of Jamaica Dr. Andrew Holness has reaffirmed the government's commitment to lowering the country's persistently high energy costs, describing the issue as a national priority with wide-reaching economic implications. His remarks come amid growing calls from the private sector for energy market liberalization and more affordable electricity rates. Jamaica's electricity costs remain among the highest in the Caribbean. Speaking on Tuesday during the Best Dressed Chicken's renewed energy launch, Holness says the government is already engaged in good faith negotiations to renegotiate existing energy licenses.
Energy costs continue to be far too high, not just for consumers, but also for businesses, which ultimately means a higher cost of living for consumers. So the government has to take on this problem and bring the cost of energy down. It's a multifaceted approach to bring the cost of energy down. Minister Vaz told you of one of the important initiatives that we will undertake, which is to renegotiate the license. I don't want to go into it too much. We have good faith negotiations. So the truth is, however, that the structure of the license has to be renegotiated for greater efficiency, but also for greater accountability.
Prime Minister of Jamaica, Dr. Andrew Holness. And now for news from the Bank of Jamaica on how the currency markets traded today. In Friday's trading session, the US dollar is selling for $161.26, the Canadian for $118.49, the pound sterling for $215.68, and the going rate for the euro is $187.65. And now for news from the JSE on how the local equities markets traded today. In Friday's trading session, the JSE market activity resulted in the trading of 104 stocks, of which 39 advanced, 44 declined, and 21 traded firm. The winners: MFS Capital Partners, Cygnus Credit Investments 10% preference shares Class H, Caribbean Assurance Brokers, and Cygnus Credit Investments 10.50% preference shares due 2025 Class C. The losers: Indies Pharma Jamaica Ordinary Shares, Lasco Financial Services, Palace Amusement Company, and Paramount Trading Jamaica. The main index advanced by 1,561.65 points, or 0.51%, to close at 308,374.69 points. The junior market, however, declined by 36.59 points, or 1.06%, to close at 3,423.46 points.
And it's time for Market Education Feature, brought to you by CariCris, Regional Ratings, Global Standard.
In today's Market Education Feature, we're exploring the term covered interest arbitrage. Covered interest arbitrage is a currency investment strategy that takes advantage of interest rate differences between two countries while eliminating exchange rate risk through the use of a forward contract. Here's how it works. Funds are converted into a foreign currency offering a higher interest rate. Invested at that rate, and at the same time, the investor locks in a forward exchange rate to convert the returns back into the original currency. The strategy is only profitable when the cost of hedging with the forward contract is lower than the extra return earned from the higher yielding investment, hence the term arbitrage.
The Market Education Feature was brought to you by CariCris, Regional Ratings, Global Standards.
And that's it for the local news segment. Please stay with us. The regional news is up next.
The local news is brought to you by Darrimon Trading, better from the start. Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances, tease the senses. And Pulse Investments.
Hi, I'm Nielsen Rose, host of Let's Talk Stocks, reminding you that health is indeed wealth and time is really money. Why not spend a little time with us? Weekday mornings, 9 to 9:30 a.m. for your daily dose of business, economic, and investment insights.
And now for the regional business news. Miata Metals Corporation has announced plans to raise up to $3 million through a non-brokered private placement as the company ramps up exploration efforts at its Sailor Creek and Nassau gold projects in Suriname. The offering consists of up to 13,043,478 units priced at 23 cents per unit, each comprising one common share and one-half of a transferable warrant. Each full warrant will allow holders to purchase an additional share at 40 cents for up to 24 months after closing. However, the warrants will only become exercisable 61 days post-closing. Miata says proceeds from the raise will go toward exploration activities and general corporate purposes. Meanwhile, the securities will be issued under the listed issuer financing exemption under Canadian securities regulations and will not be subject to resale restrictions in most provinces and territories, excluding Quebec. The offering is expected to close on or around August 21, 2025, subject to customary regulatory approvals and compliance with the policies of the Canadian Securities Exchange, CSE. The company also disclosed that insiders may participate for up to $500,000. However, Miata is relying on exemptions from valuation and minority shareholder approval requirements as the value does not exceed 25% of the company's market cap. ExxonMobil has commenced production at Yellowtail, its fourth deepwater project in Guyana's Stabroek Block, boosting the consortium's total output capacity to 900,000 barrels of oil per day (BPD). The project, developed in partnership with Chevron and CNOOC, came online ahead of schedule and adds 250,000 BPD to the region's rapidly expanding output. Yellowtail's ahead of schedule startup is a significant milestone for ExxonMobil and the people of Guyana, says President of ExxonMobil upstream company Dan Amman. He also noted that Guyanese nationals now make up over 67% of the country's oil and gas workforce, with more than 2,000 local businesses participating in the sector. Yellowtail marks the fourth Stabroek project brought online in just 5 years, all under budget and ahead of schedule, reinforcing ExxonMobil's claim that the Guyana operations are among the most successful deepwater developments globally. With Yellowtail's addition, the Stabroek Block is on track to reach production capacity of 1.7 million barrels per day by 2030, positioning Guyana to rank among the top 15 oil production countries worldwide. And Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Gaston Brown, has issued a strong call to action for African and Caribbean nations to urgently invest in establishing sustainable air and sea transportation links, arguing that failure to do so will continue to stifle trade, tourism, and the free movement of people and capital between the regions. Speaking during a panel discussion at the Africa-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum Active 2025 recently, Brown says the infrastructure deficit has long been a known issue, but stressed that the region possesses the capacity, both in ideas and capital, to address it through strategic public-private partnerships.
And I'm hoping that we can have a strong partnership between the public and private sectors in which we could utilize not only our ideas but also funding in order to create sustaining A and C links between Africa and the Caribbean. Because at the end of the day, if we're unable to move people and to move goods, then clearly we will not be successful.
Prime Minister Brown proposed the commissioning of a technical study to guide the development and positioning of air and sea routes.
Going into the Africa-Caribbean Summit in Addis Ababa, I am hoping that we can have a full commitment from our leaders to establish the necessary A and C links. In fact, perhaps we could start a study from now to determine exactly how to position those A and C links and the necessary investments. I believe that the Afro-Exim Bank could provide some seed money for this initiative, but we need urgent action. And within CARICOM, we've been discussing getting our own vessels to establish our own sea links. But perhaps there could be a broader involvement involving Africa in which we can move goods from Africa to the Caribbean, and that those very vessels could also move goods within the region, so we can increase inter-region trade as well.
Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Gaston Brown. It's now time for news from the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 25 securities, of which 11 advanced, 7 declined, and 7 traded firm. Today's winners are One Caribbean Media, MedCorp, Guardian Holdings, and Unilever Caribbean. While leading the losers are Grace Kennedy, Republic Financial, National Enterprises, and Endeavor Holdings. Trading activity resulted in the following movements. The All TNT Index declined by 1.82 points to close at 1,452.30. The Composite Index declined by 1.46 points to close at 1,005.41. The Cross-Listed Index declined by 0.15 points to close at 73.82. The SME Index advanced by 1.05 points to close at 97.82. And we take a short break, but please do stay with us. The international news segment with Nielsen Rose is up next.
Let's all get fit. This summer set drip. Hip dips and split. Power in the mind. Let's get healthy with it. Sometimes the body's so hard, but everybody wants it. And then your head is so home, and it's so like this. So we gotta go 1, 2, 3. One more now. 1, 2, 3. Let's go. One more now. 1, 2, 3. One more now. 1, 2, 3, go.
Welcome back, and thanks for staying with us. In the international news today, the FAO Food Price Index rose by 1.6% in July, reaching 130.1 points, its highest level since February 2023. This increase was fueled by rising prices for meat and vegetable oils, which outweighed declines in cereal, dairy, and sugar. Compared to July 2024, the index was 7.6% higher, though it remained 18.8% below its peak from March 2022. Meat prices climbed 1.2%, setting a new record, largely due to higher quotations of bovine and ovine meat, along with a modest rise in poultry prices. Vegetable oil prices surged 7.1% to a 3-year high, driven by increased quotations of palm, soy, and sunflower oils, which more than offset a decline in rapeseed oil. In contrast, cereal prices fell 0.8%, hitting their lowest level since 2020, with notable drops in sorghum and wheat quotations. Sugar prices edged down 0.2%, marking the 5th consecutive monthly decline. Dairy prices slipped 0.1%, the first decrease since April 2024, led by lower international prices of butter and milk powders. Canada's unemployment rate held steady at 6.9% in July, matching the previous month and coming in just below market expectations of 7%. Despite this slight beat, the rate remains near a 4-year high, reflecting ongoing labour market strain. The Bank of Canada attributed the stagnation to a large labour supply and rising economic uncertainty driven by U.S. tariffs and unpredictable policy shifts. The total number of unemployed individuals stayed relatively flat at 1.6 million, with 23.8% classified as long-term unemployed. Meanwhile, net employment dropped 40,800, the sharpest decline since 2022, erasing much of June's 83,100 job surge, sharply diverging from forecasts of a 13,500 job increase. The participation rate also slipped by 0.2 percentage points to 65.2%. Youth unemployment climbed to 14.6%, marking its highest level since 2010, excluding the pandemic period, as seasonal summer hiring slowed significantly. Spot gold hovered near 3,400 per ounce on Friday, holding close to a 2-week high, while NY Gold futures for December delivery soared to an intraday record of 3,534 per troy ounce. The rally followed news of new U.S. tariffs targeting gold imports. As reported by the Financial Times, the U.S. Customs and Border Protection unexpectedly ruled that 1 kilo and 100-ounce gold bars fall under a custom code subject to levies, defying industry expectations that bars would be exempt. The decision could deal a significant blow to Switzerland, the world's leading gold refining center, where gold is a major export to the U.S. For the week, spot gold rose nearly 1%, marking its second straight weekly gain, fueled by trade tensions, renewed tariff risks, and growing anticipation of Federal Reserve rate cuts. China's current account surplus soared to an unprecedented $135.1 billion in the second quarter of 2025, a sharp increase from the $55.5 billion in the same period last year, based on preliminary estimates. The goods trade surplus surged to 219.1, up from 163.4 in Q2. This was driven by a 5.7% rise in exports to US $871.8 billion, while imports declined 1.3% to $652.8 billion. The services deficit narrowed to $46.5 billion compared to $61.7 billion a year earlier. The primary income deficit eased slightly to 41.4, down from 48.9 billion US dollars. The secondary income surplus grew 4 billion, up from 2.7 billion in Q2 2024. And those were your international business stories. After the break, join Rochelle for your recap.
Serious Serious about building Jamaica? Build with solid PVC pipes and conduits, manufactured in Jamaica by Phosphate, made to the highest standard. Solid PVC pipes and conduits are made in Jamaica by Jamaicans for Jamaicans. Available at hardware stores across the island. Take some solid advice, support our economy, and build well. Buy solid PVC pipes. Next time, ask for solid brand PVC pipes and conduits. Call our distributors or Phosphate at 876-937-5099.
And now to recap our top stories. In the local news, NCB Financial Group reports over 30 billion net profit for 9 months ended June 30. Regionally, Miata Metals launches a US $3 million private placement to advance gold exploration in Suriname. And internationally, global food prices climb in July, hitting 17-month high. Those were the stories making today's CBX Evening News. On behalf of Nielsen Rose and the entire production team, I'm Rochelle Moncrief. Thanks for watching CBX, your region, your business, your source.